Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming out on this rainy and windy night. It is 7:08, and I will call the meeting to the order. I'm Julie Reyes, Chairperson of Bronx Community Board 8. And just a few notes. We loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order, so we will be following the agenda that was previously distributed. If we open up with a general discussion, we ask if you'd like to speak that you raise your hands and I will call on you. Or at times Sergio, which during the meeting, Sergio, I will hand over to you. If you're not speaking, we ask that you mute yourself to prevent background noise. And if you are on Zoom, to raise your hand, you will select the reactions at the bottom of the screen. And if you are on the phone, you just press *6 to mute and unmute. And you press *9 to raise your hand or lower your hands. Non-executive committee members are not permitted to participate in discussions during the executive committee meeting. The community is welcome to attend committee meetings where they will have far more opportunity to engage and discuss their issues. Contact the board office to be put on a mailing list or go onto the board's website to view dates of the various committees that are open to all. Approval of the extraordinary circumstances for this evening are Margaret Della, myself, Julie Reyes, and Mary Ellen Gibbs. Just a reminder, the board members, including myself, must keep the video on at all times. The board members who have extraordinary circumstances, and our names must be displayed. Okay, so I'll just start off the meetings with a few thank yous. A huge thank you, Sergio, for conducting last month's board meeting. Thank you, very well. Now, if we can have the next meeting as swiftly and as orderly, that would be great. A huge thank you to David Gelman and Stephen Fruit for participating as school speakers at PS 360 a few weeks ago, where they spoke to the students. I don't think is David or Stephen there? No. Okay. And thank you, Marty, for suggesting last month's speaker at the board meeting, Alex Kipp, who was very informative and kept the members interested. Thank you so much. And a huge thank you to Farah and Artie. The newsletter that you guys put together was incredible. Very, very nice. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Okay, so just quickly, we will have next board's meeting in a timely manner. A letter will be resent to all elected officials advising them that only the elected officials who are present will be called upon for 3 minutes. Their representatives will only be acknowledged. And the committee reports and resolutions at the board meeting will start by 7:45 p.m. So we're in the middle of something. Once we complete it, if we have to, we'll make a motion just to skip and go right to the committee report so that all the committee chairpersons will be afforded the opportunity to give their monthly reports. A timer will be used on all. We're asking for 3 minutes for committee reports, and naturally, if you have a resolution, it's going to go beyond the 3 minutes because we do want discussions, but we're looking for 3 minutes. The board members should be reading their minutes, and if they have any questions on any of the reports, be it the treasurer's report, the committee reports, they can contact the board office, the committee chair, the vice chair, if they have small questions, rather than take up the whole meeting on minor questions. And the board will also respond back to everyone. I want to thank Karen Argenti. She sent us a directory for the delegation, the Bronx City Council members. Very similar to what Marty also sends us. He sends us a more detailed information on the city council. And that's it in regards to the meetings. The nomination committee meeting will be held for the April meeting next week. We'll be putting together a nominating committee, and their meeting, once formed, will follow directly after the board meeting. And in regards to the Irving Latimer Service Award, I'm asking if everybody could spread the word, put the information on your websites or contact organizations, because it's a very worthy award and it's pretty slow and trickling. So we have a guest at our meeting, Ed Harvey with the Riverdale Press, so maybe you can push that along too. We'd appreciate it. And just 2 quick reminders, resolutions from the committee chairs. The resolution should be submitted when you're submitting your minutes to the office. If the resolutions are not in by noon of the meeting date, they will have to be brought to the floor. They put the packages together and it's just time consuming to slip everything in. It's just an adjustment policy. So have your resolutions in before noon of the meeting date. Otherwise, you can bring the resolution from the floor. And lastly, the June 13th, rather the June meeting will be held on Thursday, June 13th at Wave Hill. And that's it for my report. Other than the fact that, thank you, Farag, for getting us the speaker for this evening. We're going to have Nick Stamper present to us the manager's report. So thanks, Farah, for coordinating that. Any questions or comments? Okay, so then we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Good evening, everyone. This is the April 20.
Yep, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I want to share the screen. I go back to Zoom and then share the screen. Sorry. Where is it? Here. Share. Okay, thank you, sorry.
Perfect. Thank you, Farah. So just following up what Chair Reyes said, that in furtherance of any questions that anyone might have, since you get the treasurer's report ahead of time, if you have any detailed questions, that would you can send an email, and that would afford me an opportunity to do the due diligence. We have remaining $112,143 for the budget fiscal year 24, and the breakout is $24,156 other than personal services. There are no budget mods. We do expect one for the May budget. In terms of 1.3, the 100, can you scroll down a bit?
Is that where you want?
No, the 194. I'm advised that the 194 should actually be off the books, so to speak, because this was a W. Mason's expenditure, and it's some sort of glitch that's keeping it on these reports. So Artie is going to work on that for us. And finally, 1.4 is the rent and energy detail, of which 2,042 is remaining. Is that right? For the 194, the Mason?
Yeah, it was already paid, but it's still remaining in the encumbered, which we will remove it.
We'll remove the glitch, okay. And that's the April 2024 Treasurer's Report.
Oh.
I'm sorry, did you raise your hand?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, Roseberry.
so the 24,000 remaining OTPS, when we started the year, you'll remember, Farah, looking at doing the housing guide, you were skeptical that there even be money for it. Well, clearly,
Get that statement,
but there's clearly money to do the printing. Like, even though we don't know exactly how much the printing will be, there's clearly enough money. But my question is, because we're coming to, like, it's being, we did all the work and now it's being documented, so they will be okay. The question is, on what date do you really need it to go to the printer so that that it gets, I mean, remember what the rule is. It has, you have to, whatever we buy has to be received and paid for before the end of the fiscal year. So therefore, as we're coming to the end of the fiscal year, now I'm not concerned about the money, I'm concerned about the timing. Can you let us know exactly what date you'd have to have it so that it goes in, gets printed, and gets paid for to meet that requirement?
Yes, I mean, I will say it will give us comfortably 2 to 3 weeks when you, to do it all. So
I don't know what that means. I mean, if I hand it to you.
Before June 30th.
Her deadline, what's
yes.
Rosemary's deadline?
Thank you, Laura, that's my
If
question.
you could be ready with it by June 1st, that would be a very comfortable deadline.
So that you think in that period of time, it can be printed and delivered? You do?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for our treasurer?
Because your MOs is spend down, spend out,
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't have anything remaining.
Correct.
So there's no issue that this will be covered?
No, because I know they said it will take about a week to do all the printing, but
No,
I'd
I
like to
mean
make it.
budget in terms of the
Yeah, but I'm
expenditure.
figuring out to do the printing, receive it, you have to have all that before you can put in
Exactly,
to pay for it.
right.
So that's why
The money is there.
the money is there, yes.
It's only half the battle.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on the treasurer's report? David Gelman, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. In a similar vein, supplies and office items. We are more than 3/4 of the way through, but yet those have more than 2/3 or 3/4 still unallocated. Do we have any plans for a significant part of that?
Sarah, would you like to answer that?
I would. Actually, I'm gonna talk about it in my GM report, that April is the month that I will be spending a lot of money, to buy exactly that, items
you.
to bring, I'll mention it in my
Okay, so we don't want to spoil the DM report. David, anything else?
No, that's fine. I'll wait for her report. That's fine.
As we all do with bated breath. Any other questions for our treasurer? No, thank you for the excellent report, Joy.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Chair.
And now we move on to our district manager's report. Not much this time.
Okay. So, good evening, brave souls. Thank you all for making it in the rain. I hope you all had a nice Easter weekend. I wanted to report that our office recently received tickets from the New York Botanical Gardens to distribute tickets to their orchid exhibition on April 6th. We did distribute all the tickets. They went to Riverdale Senior Services and to a local shelter. They took most of the tickets. And we had a few tickets left to give out to some of our community members who came by and picked them up. I did also want to mention that it is open we have a link to the website. Anyone who lives in the Bronx has an opportunity to ask for 2 tickets. You just sign up on the link, and you can do it that way. So if anyone's interested, it's for every Bronx resident, so I'm happy to give the link to everyone. It's 2 tickets for this Saturday, April 6th. It looks like a beautiful exhibition. The quarterly winter review newsletter was sent to all board members, and I hope you had a chance to review it. The next newsletter will be released at the end of June, and if you have any photos of meetings or events that you participated as a board member, it'd be great if you could send them here, because we love to include that. Members of CB8, and I'm sorry I didn't check with Julie, so there might be a little repetition, but I did want to mention that members of CB8 were invited to the Public School 360 in Kingsbridge to speak and celebrate with their students on civic empowerment. Thank you to Stephen Fruit and David Gelman for representing CB8. The faculty at PS 360 extended their heartfelt gratitude for taking the time to present to their students with a presentation that was enlightening and provided their students with valuable knowledge about the important work of Community Board 8 in our neighborhood. They did this on March 14th, so thank you. Our next full board meetings will be at the Ethical Culture Fieldston School, followed by St. Stephen's Church in Marble Hill, and then Wave Hill in June. And please be sure to always check the calendar and agenda for the location of the meeting. As you know, I've been looking for a few months now into the speaker microphones and tech needs for our board meetings. I did find some items of interest. I have reviewed with other community boards about their systems, and I now have a meeting to discuss the cost of the OWL speakers that I mentioned and a camera for our conference room. And I would like to purchase, that's one of the purchases I would like to make this month. I'm also going to be ordering new items this month so that we have new giveaways for events that we are tabling at the spring and summer. And I will be spending down against what we have budgeted for. We also need to replenish items from the office and some of our beautiful, lovely folders, pens, things like that. We will be ordering things very shortly. We have received some nominations for the Community Service Award, the Irving Latimer Award, and we'll send that to the committee once it is formed. I recently held the District Service Cabinet meeting on April 2nd, and we'll be posting those minutes tomorrow to everybody. And an interesting thing at the meeting was that for those interested in the upcoming solar eclipse on Monday, April 8th, Riverdale Library mentioned that they have eclipse glasses for residents, and you would just need to sign a waiver, and you can get 1 pair per waiver. My next DSC meeting is Tuesday, May 7th. One more item from the mayor's office. I did resend the request for people to apply for the neighborhood support team. One member of the board was interested, but they need at least 2 more people. It can be from the community board, it could be from a community-based organization, or from a bid. So if you know of anyone interested, please let them know to sign up. And it's a great opportunity to address quality of life issues, which we have many in our district. So I hope we can get a couple more people so we can be considered as a district to be on this team. And then lastly, agendas and minutes. It's very important we follow our core guidelines to have meeting agenda 10 days before and the minutes 10 days after the meeting. Our office is here to assist you in any way possible. I want to stress that. And just reach out if you need help with anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions on the district manager's report? Yes, Rosemary.
I'd just like to add that Spuyten Duyvil Library is also handing out the glasses on Monday. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a different neighborhood,
But
so.
I don't, most of them are all out. They're mostly out.
One at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Emily, you had something
Oh,
to add?
Spuyten Duyvil Library is hosting a watch party.
Oh, okay.
It'll be in the DSC minutes too, the details on that.
Well, if you have different things, please send them over to Farah's, because perhaps you could post it and send it to our list. That way, it's all centralized in one place. Anyone online have any questions on the DM report? Yes, David?
Yes, actually, I've got a thing to send to Farah on the Spuyten Duyvil Library as well. Just a quick question about the Fieldston School next week. I don't know the campus very well. Are we meeting in the same room as the last time?
Yes.
Okay,
Same place, same time. There's parking. I sent a map on, I will have a map on the agenda.
okay,
The building is 600.
that's fine, very
Okay,
good.
so any individual logistical questions, please follow up with Farah. Anyone who's participating. Any other questions for our DM? Okay, no. Okay. Item number 5, we have our DCP presentation. Who's,
Hello.
Nicholas Stamper.
oh, there he is.
Hey, can you guys
Sorry
all
about
hear
that,
me?
Nicholas. I was looking for you in the room.
Unfortunately, I'm
Please
just up
introduce
here.
yourself and tell us what you're gonna, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Nick. I am an analyst on the planning support team at City Planning. We're one of the central divisions that does a lot of work kind of all across DCP's work streams. And I'm also, as is most relevant to our presentation tonight, I'm our lead for the community district needs process, through which we collect district need statements and community board budget requests every year from all 59 community boards. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a short presentation that Farah had requested I come give related to community board budget requests specifically. And so I can walk through that short presentation and then open for any questions or discussion you might have. So give me a second while I share my screen. Okay, are you all able to see this first slide?
So far, yes.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be going over a short presentation on community board budget requests and some best practices and guidance for crafting and prioritizing community board budget requests as you think about sort of throughout the year what items might be added, updated, or removed from your board's submission. I'll start with a brief overview of the process in case anyone is less familiar with sort of the community district needs process as a whole. Talk about what's contained in a budget request, as well as some best practices, and then I'll wrap up with some resources that are available to the board as they go through crafting your submission. So on an overview, just to start, so DCP is one of a number of agency stakeholders involved in the community district needs process. We primarily work with OMB as sort of stewards of this process. So DCP's role specifically is that we're here not only to collect the actual submissions, but also to work with community boards throughout the year, both during kind of the peak of the submission cycle, but also throughout the rest of the year, to make sure that you feel supported in whatever you may need for crafting those submissions, both the district needs statement and the budget requests alike. And our goals in doing this are not only to sort of keep the lights on, keep the wheels turning, but also to make sure that the process feels like a valuable exercise for everyone involved, and really to help improve trust and dialogue between agencies and community boards, and make sure that all of this really valuable information that we're getting out of this process from all the boards every year is being used then on the back end to inform agencies in their own planning, budgeting, and decision making. And so these are all sort of the goals that go into what our team at DCP specifically does in terms of helping this process keep running every year. So the process itself is a combination of two different charter mandates where every year all of the community boards in the city will submit a statement of community district needs as well as their budget priorities. That district needs statement is a really great advocacy tool that really helps tell the story of the district's highest priorities, highest needs, and highest issues. And then the budget requests sort of form that really granular, nitty-gritty, high level of detail on how the district would really like to see city agencies address the needs that they described in their district needs statement. So these have kind of been combined under this one umbrella. And tonight we'll obviously be focusing more specifically on the budget request side of things here. More summary information here. For anyone less familiar with the district needs statement, it contains a lot of different types of information. In the narrative sections, we get everything from a district overview to the district's top 3 pressing issues, most important issues by policy area, as well as some agency specific narratives. And then, of course, the budget requests themselves. And this is a process that spans quite a few months of the year. We begin our outreach to boards to sort of kick off the official cycle in May every year. June 1st is when we opened the submission form last year to make sure that folks have a lot of time to spend with their submission before the submission deadline at the end of October. And then throughout really the November and into December, agencies are responding to the budget requests they receive from boards so that those requests and responses are then jointly published in the preliminary budget by OMB in January, and we start the whole cycle over again. We're now in the part of the year that we go around to, whether it be community boards or basically all of our agency partners, to debrief and share out on the data and things that we learned from the last cycle. And so very happy that you've all welcomed me tonight as another stop on our road shows, as we call them. So thank you all for the invite. So on the budget request side of things specifically, budget requests are often very numerous and they include a lot of data within each request. But these 3 items are really the keys that define most requests. So we've got the type of request that is either capital or expense. the request itself, the thing that you're asking for, and then the location, whether the request is something that it's a district-wide need or if it's related to something at a specific site or location. So on type, we have both capital and expense requests that come through this system. Your capital requests, which the recommended sort of general number that a board would submit in a given year would be 40 capital requests. Those are requests for large infrastructure improvements or large purchases from agencies. So for instance, an agency purchasing a new fleet vehicle would be an example of a capital purchase, or repairing some sort of infrastructure, another example of a capital purchase. Expense requests are usually for programmatic and operational expenses by the agency. The request itself is going to contain a couple bits of information. We obviously know what agency you're requesting something from, and then you're also giving an explanation that is effectively asking that agency, can you fund this particular proposal in your next fiscal year budget? And so there's a bit of a relationship there between obviously the need that's being addressed and then the actual line item that you're requesting the agency consider for funding through that request. And then of course, location, either it's a district-wide request. This is something that you want the agency to increase funding for that applies to the whole district, or a site-specific request might be that a specific library branch or a specific public school might need some sort of capital purchase or new technology. And so that might be an example of a site-specific request. So all of this is collected for each individual budget request so that the agency responding has a very good idea of not only exactly what you're asking, but where it applies and what type of thing you're expecting to get out of that. So here's an example of a particularly good budget request from a number of years ago that we use as an example to point back to. This is from Bronx 7. This is a request to Parks for a full reconstruction of an existing bicycle and pedestrian path, and they list a series of other improvements here. So this is a pretty clear-cut example of a capital request where they've clearly listed the location. We know what park they're talking about. We know exactly what items in the park need addressing. Some agencies prefer that things like this get separated into several requests so that they could respond in kind to, we can address the new security lighting, but not this other thing until another year. But that's a bit toss up depending on the agency. But this is a great level of detail. The agency reading this would obviously have a great understanding of exactly the items that they need to put a dollar sign on to understand if they are feasible to fund in that next fiscal year. So when Farah or anyone else at the board is working on inputting new budget requests or reprioritizing existing budget requests in our online system for a new submission every year, this is how an individual request will show up in the system. We've got a couple of different bits of information here, including some that are new additions in the new system that we're rolling out this year. So you'll see we've got a priority number for each request. Obviously, your full capital and expense list get prioritized in 1 through however many you have. We've added a new feature that is the budget request title. So in previous years, all of these budget requests only had a tracking code to refer to them. We still have that on the back end for posterity's sake, but we found that it was very difficult and confusing to, in common parlance, refer to, go look at budget request 030820222157. That wasn't really anyone's favorite way to talk about their needs. And so we've introduced a new system of budget request titles to hopefully make it easier to both prioritize, but also to speak about those requests, refer people to those requests and things of that nature. We've got down the left side here, policy area, need group, agency. These are categorical titles of things that as the new request is created, you're using that to kind of narrow down exactly what you're asking for. And then we've got the explanation. We've got where the agency response would be if this was a previously submitted request that had already received a response. And then lastly, another new feature is the date stamp. We hear from a lot of boards that obviously many of these requests either aren't being funded in the year that they're submitted, or if it's a capital request, some take multiple years to approve and fund. And so we've added this timestamp feature so that it's very easy to track exactly the day that a new request was created in this new system, that will be displayed on the request so that someone using the system can see exactly when that new request was created. So some best practices that we usually like to share, and these are things that we update as we go and speak to agencies and get a better idea of what agencies look for in a request that makes it easiest for them to identify whether it's fundable and then ultimately respond, is that agencies love to see a direct request where they understand sort of first sentence exactly what's being asked for. That, to the second point, does not exclude offering any rationale. It's very helpful to understand, what is the need behind the request. And so it definitely helpful to include that kind of contextual information, but being right up front, that first sentence saying, we need a new this for this facility or whatever the case may be, makes it very easy to quickly understand what the request is asking for. Details such as site-specific projects, including location data, can also make it easy for agencies to do whatever sort of data manipulation they want to do in the back end if it involves mapping your requests and understanding what facilities and where require certain upgrades, including that location information can make that really easy for them. And then, of course, keeping them refreshed. In some cases, you'll receive responses from an agency that maybe say that part of a request has been funded, but not another part. And so it can be helpful to update to remove the part that has been funded, or maybe an agency has asked for a follow-up bit of information that you want to include in a new version of that request. So making sure that we go through every year and remove requests that we know have been funded and keep the list refreshed can often help with receiving some additionally refreshed responses for those as well. So lastly, on the note of resources, I mentioned at the top that a lot of what my team does is make sure that we provide support and resources for boards as they go through these submissions. Here, I've got an example of a few resources that DCP hosts online that can help answer questions you might have while you're producing either your narratives or your budget requests. For instance, our community district profiles will help find previous year's needs statements and requests. If you're looking for any of those, we've got those sort of archived on there. Our Facilities Explorer is a really easy way to search around for what public facilities already exist in the district, and I think also including some that are approved for funding. Zola, our zoning and land use application portal, is great for answering any zoning and land use related questions. And then our Population Fact Finder has a lot of different population data, demographic data that could help in answering questions about maybe shifting demographics or other trends in your neighborhood. And then lastly, we have a number of other resources that sort of come direct from our team. We've got these data resources, some of which I just listed, but we've also began scaling up a number of our other support services. So for instance, we now host a public survey that boards can opt into to receive reports on public input related to these submissions. So for instance, this survey is a single survey link that anyone in the city can open up and say, I live in Bronx Community Board 8, and here are my top 3 issues in my district, and here's my most important issue in each of these policy areas. And then I send you a report of what everyone that has identified themselves with your district is responding back to. So we now have that available for all 59 boards to opt into. We also have a number of print materials such as flyer templates and educational handouts in case anyone wanted to share out at a community meeting about this process. Those are available to be customized as well, so you can put your own contact information on there. And we can also help out with tech support and any analysis. We've had a number of boards that have signed up to walk through their previous year's budget requests line by line to get a better understanding of what was requested last year, what the response was, and how it reads to us on the agency side. What does that look like to somebody at an agency reading that communication between the board and the agency. And so we are really here to support in whatever way we can to help you better understand what's going on in this admittedly somewhat complex budgeting process. So the final resource worth mentioning is just that we are available to answer any questions or provide any additional help that we can. So of course, Farah can put you all in contact with me if you have any questions that we don't cover tonight, but always feel free to reach out. This email address specifically will go to my entire team that works on the CD needs process. So we're always available for whether it be tech support, answering questions, additional trainings, whatever you might need. We are definitely here to help. So happy to answer any questions, or I can scroll back to any other slides if anybody wants to revisit any of that content. But thank you all, and look forward to whatever questions or discussion we can get into.
Thank you very much, Nick. Any of the committee members have any questions for Mr. Stamper? Start with Ed.
How you doing, Mr. Stamper? So I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee. So one of the agencies we deal with mainly is the NYPD.
Mhm.
But I'm looking at the fiscal year 25 agency responses. So surveillance cameras, Argus cameras, as the agencies have told us, that they're funded directly from elected officials. They're funded from allocations from elected officials, so that wouldn't deal with the agencies. So your organization, how do you would you be doing any interacting with our elected officials in terms of trying to get us this, or just with the agencies that you traditionally deal with?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's one that has come up a lot with a number of different agencies that have similarly interesting different funding sources. And so when it comes to agencies that like NYPD, or in another great example, Parks has a lot of capital improvements that are funded through elected official applications. Those are requests that the agency still has expressed to us, still likes to receive through this process, because it allows them to hear directly from the board about key locations that they want to include for future capital improvements. And so even though this process is really tailored to be related to what can that agency fund out of their next fiscal year, there are some agencies that still use it as another input source for what things they might want to go then talk to elected officials about. So unfortunately, the con there is that they for those types of requests where it's usually elected official funding, they find it harder to say, yep, we can do that, no problem. But that does not mean that they can't then take that information and in the case of, I can speak more directly to Parks because we've had recent conversations with them about this, that they then use that information to create their own lists of what are their needs to go then advocate for with those elected officials. So it is a bit less direct of a process when it comes to those items that are often elected official funded. But I can attest that there are a lot of agencies that, even in spite of that, use these requests as input sources to identify key locations for those improvements.
Thank you.
No problem.
Rosemary, you had something, then David.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it's very dense, and I don't mean that as but there's a lot of information there. I think it could be useful for our committee members. I find myself, I have brand new members, and I have people who have been on for 2 years, and then people who have been on for 10 years. But those who are on, they just come on the board. Information like this could be very helpful if they got it in September, October, as we start to think about the capital needs. So my question is this what you presented? Could it be available to us? Does it exist someplace where if a committee chair felt it could be useful for their committee, that they could have it or use it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've already sent a PDF version of this presentation over to Farah, so you guys have that and can continue to use it and share it around. I'm also, our team is available for additional trainings as you get closer to that time of the year. And so if we are coming back from a summer recess and want some sort of more in-depth briefing, we're more than happy to do that. We've also had some district managers have expressed interest in having board members attend trainings for things like our new website, just to kind of get an idea of what the physical doing of the submission looks like, to help kind of understand beyond just the top line, what sections are in the report, sort of thing. So really anything that anything you can think of, we're happy to support with and provide at any time of the year.
Well, this presentation is very thorough. I think it's a great primer. It's a great starting point for anybody who wants to understand the process. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. David and Deb.
Okay, thank you. Yes, by the way, can you hear me well? The wind is howling, so I don't know if I'm overcompensating.
I can't hear you, yeah.
Thank you, Nicholas. I'm the budget chair of Bronx CBA, and we are right in the thick of our planning for 2026 this month. And what you've just presented to us is very useful. I look forward to getting copies, particularly of this address, which I'm too lazy to write down, but moreover, all the websites. I think the slides are very helpful at identifying those sites. Just one question.
Yeah.
For years, we've been told that capital is any, well, I'm sorry, let me back up just 1 second. You have given a classic definition of capital being longer term infrastructure, stuff like that, versus expense, which is typically operating. For years, we have been told the way the city looks at it, at least in this process, is more or less than $35,000, which has never made sense to me. Are you telling us that actually we should be focusing on the long-term and infrastructure versus the operating?
So I can't commit to a yes or no on the 35,000 specifically, because I think, for instance, our capital planning team at City Planning probably has a better idea of where that number came from and whether it still is accurate and in use with all these other capital agencies. I would say, this is also some information I can provide afterwards if you want to look into it further. When you're thinking about it, this is one of the sort of translation errors that's tough because of the way the website asks users to put in the new information. So the agencies do provide a discrete list of what types of requests they accept under capital and expense. And there are, of course, options for, other capital expense for a particular agency or something of that nature. I would say my general recommendation is that, and I can provide those lists as well. They are pretty long, but it certainly is helpful to give an idea of what types of things that particular agency considers in those categories. And generally speaking, if it feels like it fits the category that or one of the categories they've offered, we rarely see agencies return requests saying, oh, this should have been expense, we can't do anything with this, or this should have been capital, we can't do anything with this. So I would say, as long as the level of specificity is high, it's clear to the agency what's being asked for, they can really, address put a dollar sign on it and figure out if the funding is feasible. The sorting of those categories that they offer, it's a drop down list when you go in to input it. That really takes care of most of the fine line items of this could really go either way. And some requests, I should add the caveat that some requests do allow you to submit operational or capital or expense for the same request type. In those instances where you're really really on the fence and you're not sure, I would say my fallback safe option is it a purchase of something, or is it a increase of funding for a program? Trying to separate, like, is it an item or a process, I think, is one way that I've found helpful to envision it. So I'll of course provide all that additional information on the request type lists as well, but I think I've found it personally more helpful to abstract away from the dollar amount a bit. But I won't promise that that's not still someone at OMB's rule of thumb.
Okay, well, I look forward to getting those lists and sharing it with our committees. Thank you.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you. Deb, you had your hand up?
Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas, for this presentation. This was great. The one question is an ongoing debate that we often have is, so I'm the Parks Chair, and a project, the Parks Department may put a project onto its 3-year capital commitment list, but it's not started yet. And so, and then when money gets tight, it might start to get pushed out, the funding for it. So my question really is, when is it safe to take an item off of our capital priority list? Our debate is always, we shouldn't remove it until we've got a design, it's basically in design phase, just so that it doesn't disappear and people think that we don't want it anymore.
Sure. I would say, so specifically in the case of capital requests, there is also the option to mark something as continued support. And so if that request has been partially funded or approved conceptually for funding, or has in some way entered their sort of concrete planning process, you can opt to mark that capital request as continued support, and it'll get moved off of your capital list and onto a separate continued support list that, for all intents and purposes, gets kind of tacked onto the bottom of your capital list, but it takes it out of the priority equation. So it's no longer taking up a priority number. And so that is probably, for a lot of these in-between requests that have not been fully implemented, but are somewhere along the way, is probably your best bet for keeping it on the list, keeping it in the document, so that you're not taking it out completely, but not having it occupy one of your priority numbers that you might want to assign to another item.
Okay, good. That's really good to know. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Nick? Yes, Bob Bender.
Sergio, it's really not a question. I just wanted to point out to everybody that the three top pressing issues are on our community board website. And it may be that not everyone's familiar with them. And they are, in order, affordable housing, parks and open space, and senior services. And I mention this because we're going into the City of Yes housing, which is going to be a big discussion for the board this spring. And affordable housing is and has been for many years the #1 issue in the district needs statement for CBA.
Can I just?
Yes, please. Laura and then Emily.
Yes, housing has been #1,
Please
particularly.
speak up, Laura, a little bit. I wanna make sure.
Housing has been #1 for many years, particularly maintenance at NYCHA and Fort Independence houses. We've been very specific in those #1 for roofs, for boilers, and for those situations. I think that I would add the word maintenance of our housing stock as being, a very huge priority in Community Board 8, and it's been that way for years.
I should add that the overview, 45% of Community Board 8 residents consider themselves rent burdened. So this is, you're absolutely right, Laura, that the NYCHA housing is a big issue, but affordability is a big issue throughout Community Board 8.
Yeah, I mean, as we stated in our priorities, we do have that language about NYCHA, and specifically, the lack of maintenance is our #1 complaint.
So I guess, Nick, how, does the city planning, like, what's your reaction to that these things have been on our website for a while? How do you guys take that for action, or what, if anything, is done, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, so on the first part, I would say, to a certain extent, those top 3 pressing issues are things that, when you look at the list of options, they're not items that anyone expects you can snap our fingers and solve in a year, which is a lot of boards don't change most of those top 3 issues year on year because of really just the scale of the problem that's being identified. With the distinction between affordable housing versus condition of public housing, that level of nuance, I think, is when you get further into the report, down into the most important issues in each policy area. For instance, in the land use, housing, and economic development policy area, it allows a board to then identify, maybe affordable housing is one of our top issues, blanket statement. But when we're talking about more specifics, maybe we want to call out condition of public housing as our most important issue in that policy area, to then give some time to that issue also in our document. So there are opportunities to discuss both throughout the report, so that as you're thinking about your submission, there are ways to kind of, even though we ask that you pick, top issues and things like that, there are definitely ways to address everything. On the note of how it is then addressed, so I can say from personal experience, and it is what we are doing during this time of the year right now, is that this is between the preliminary budget getting published and our starting of a new cycle. We spend really this entire time, other than kind of doing the technical stuff to get the form ready for another year, is that we go around to all of the agencies and present bespoke presentations to each agency on what did we learn from the submissions last year related to the work that your agency does. And so that's roughly 30 or so presentations that we go and make sure that we are talking with someone with often whole teams at those agencies in particular, to say, this has been look, here's the map of all the boards that selected affordable housing creation or condition of public housing, or whatever the case may be, as their most important issue. Here's whether or not those boards changed that issue recently. If it's an office that has borough offices. So for instance, like DCP ourselves, we'll go to each individual borough office and point out, in the Bronx, here are the boards that selected this as their top issue. And here's, some of the things they included in their full narrative about that. So there is a follow-up system that we have built into our process to make sure that this information is getting back to the folks at the agencies that work on these things. Obviously, being that I unfortunately only work for DCP, I can't attest to, what does HPD do when the call ends? But we do have really productive conversations with them, not, primarily at this time of year, but then also ongoing to make sure that the information that you all put in your reports is not just sort of thrown on the website and forgotten about, but really that we keep this up as a topic of conversation and a relevant input source for what issues we're considering and where throughout the whole year.
Gotcha, thank you. I mean, this is a topic, I'm sure, for a meeting unto itself. We'll take two more questions since we are doing this in the middle of our exec. Emily?
Sorry. So I actually went to a webinar last night on City of Yes, which I found really, really helpful. And I laughed, I noticed they didn't really talk about green space, and I'm thinking as we make these priorities, and we plan for the future, and we plan for the City of Yes to roll out, assuming it gets approved in some kind of form, how do these budget asks align with the rollout of the City of Yes, like chronologically? Are they in sync with each other?
That's a good question. I think largely they are independent processes, and so we're doing the budget request collection and response process every year. It just so happens that this year, the several City of Yes texts are also rolling out throughout this early part of the year. So I have to imagine that probably a lot of community boards will have new requests and narrative content informed by the City of Yes content that comes out this year. But I wouldn't say that there's any sort of formal scheduling relationship between the two. I guess we try to get into separate meetings with folks so that we don't have to take up too much time out of anybody's one agenda is probably the most of the scheduling overlap that we get. But yeah, for the most part, if there's a project or study or something that comes about because of something related to City of Yes, and speaking sort of very abstractly there, this is another source of information that our borough offices would use to inform their approach to whatever that project or study is. But beyond the fact that this is information that we collect and then me and my team go share around with the borough offices and with our other central divisions. Otherwise, the folks working on City of Yes and the team that I'm on that works on CD needs are mostly independent.
Thank you, Nick. So we'll take one more question. If anyone who hasn't asked a question would like to ask something, I'll prioritize them. All right, that's not good. I think you've been very thorough, Nick. That's what that means, because we usually have a lot of questions. Thank you very much, and we will be in touch in the future, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, Nick.
Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Excellent presentation. Yeah, that needs a meeting on its own. Yes, or something. Okay. Roll call. We're moving right along. Our chair, Julie Reyes, is President EC.
Present.
Yes.
Thank you,
She
sir.
is. Thank you. And Sergio Villaverde is President. Margaret Della, President EC. Terry Campbell, President. Laura Spalter.
Present.
Sylvia Alexander. Sylvia Alexander? Okay, not present. We have Bob Bender here. And Kelly Buford.
Present.
We have Nick Fazio. Okay, David Gelman.
Present.
Did David have an EC?
No.
Okay, so then, is that not present for our purposes, Madam Chair?
He is.
I was asking Madam Chair. Thank everyone's participation.
Probably
Thank you,
not.
Sergio. Thank you, Sergio. Anyone who doesn't have an EC is marked absent, but they may participate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Rosemary Ginty,
Here.
Right, Dr. Julia Gomez Youth is not here, but Emily Hausman, Vice Chair.
Here.
Edward Green.
Present.
Rabbi Bob Kaplan. And Oscar D. Martinez, not present, but Mary Ellen Gibbs is here in his stead for the Aging Committee. Mary Ellen Gibbs?
Present.
Thank you. Charles Merdler. Charles Merdler. Daniel Rowan.
Here.
And Deb Travis.
Not present, but participating.
Martin
Wanting.
Walpoth. Martin Walpoth. Wasn't he up there somewhere?
I think it's frozen.
Locked, or I think his screen is locked.
No, he's not locked. Marty.
Lost in that background.
I think it's frozen.
Marty does not have an EC, correct, Madam Chair?
Correct, but he's participating.
Yes, ma'am. All right, not present. All right, thank you. That's the roll call. So,
I don't know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
No quorum.
No quorum.
Seriously?
Really?
So many people here.
Oh,
Oh, do I count towards the quorum? No.
Yeah, yeah, because you're substituting for
For
someone
Julia.
else.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so then maybe we, maybe, so
Are you counting Mary Ellen and,
No, because.
Mary Ellen doesn't count for quorum. I was not counting Emily.
I think we can.
We have
No, then it's not.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9 absent.
Oh, so close.
But yet so far.
That's right.
Has to be more than half.
Has to be one more than half.
So we do not have a quorum, and no quorum being present, we will not be voting on the approval of the March 6 minutes, as no quorum is present. Now, the committee reports and resolutions. We have some resolutions. Who's the first committee in order of our agenda? Public safety. Ed?
Public safety, we have 3 resolutions, all renewals, SLAs for liquor, wine, beer, and cider. One is William E. Irvin Jr. Post at the American Legion at 3035 Corlear Avenue. The other is Van Cortlandt Park Golf Course at 115 Van Cortlandt Park South. And the third is Baby Crab and Seafood and Grill at 5740 Broadway. The 50th Precinct had no issues with any of these businesses. The Public Safety Committee unanimously approved all of them. And those are our resolutions.
Thank you. Any questions on the resolutions from public safety by the members of the committee? God bless those veterans that they still apply for a liquor license. Who's gonna say something if they're having a drink?
Not I.
But they still do the right thing. Thank you very much, Ed. Traffic and transportation.
Good evening, everyone. We have 2 resolutions for consideration at the meeting on next Tuesday. One is the Henry Hudson Parkway the overpass at Henry Hudson Parkway and 232nd Street. As many are aware, New York State DOT has been using that area to store equipment and machines. And we are requesting, due to unsafe conditions, that they remove the equipment and relocate it to other areas. Thanks to everyone who provided their input and who provided pictures so that we can share with DOT. The second one speaks to...
What was the vote on? That was unanimous, right?
That was unanimous, yes. The second set of resolutions before you speaks to the proposed DOT reconstruction of the intersection of Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey Avenue, which is leading to northbound on the Major Deegan and coming off the Major Deegan northbound. There are several items that we would like the DOT, New York City DOT, to address. In the proposed redesign, many of them have to deal with the traffic flow, particularly those of tractor trailers and other large vehicles, and they need to come up with a measure for mitigating the enhanced traffic, the increased traffic in the area, which will cause pollution, also cause pollution, and consider the other projects that are in the pipeline in that area. And that resolution, there was one abstention, but it passed as well.
Thank you.
Lastly, the next meeting is, actually not lastly, the next meeting is April 18th. And next week, Tuesday, I will not be present. I am traveling, so Chris Calhoun, Vice Chair, will be presenting on behalf of the TNT Committee.
Outstanding. Leadership. Any questions for traffic and transportation?
I do.
Please, Bob.
Kelly, you've got 3 whereas clauses and 5 resolve clauses. I think at least a couple of your resolve clauses actually should be whereas clauses. If you look at the resolve clause about the slip lanes being closed and the impact that will have, those are really whereas clauses rather than resolve clauses. Your clause about the closure of the slip lanes, the 2 different slip lanes, the one coming off the Major Deegan onto what is that, Van Cortlandt South, and the closure going from Van Cortlandt South onto Bailey. Those should really be whereas clauses.
Okay.
And there may be another one, but I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to read it carefully enough.
Any other comments for traffic transportation? Yes.
I can look at the meeting, of course, but did they explain why they're making these changes that you think sound all bad? Obviously, DOT thinks that there's a reason to do this.
Yes, and there's a presentation deck. In the interest of time, I'll just say that there's a presentation deck available on the TNT Committee's website that DOT presented, but it was from a 2016 and 2017 request from Assemblyman Dinowitz's office, and also Councilmember Pierina Sanchez also requested better pedestrian access in the area. That's the short answer.
Thank you. Ed?
I got a question. I just want to back up to something Bob said earlier. So I'm having a hard time understanding why these should be whereas clauses, because this isn't the Bronx Community Board 8 stating that they're opposing closing the slip lanes and the removal of the slip lanes. So what am I missing here? Why is that a whereas clause and not a be it resolved?
Kelly,
Yeah.
because whereas closing the lane will create a traffic hazard, that's a whereas clause. In other words, right now it says resolved, you oppose the redesign because closing the slip lanes will adversely affect traffic, tractor trailers, and whereas closing it will create a traffic hazard for large vehicles turning. Those are really whereas clauses. Those are reasons why you oppose what DOT is proposing. That's why I say they're really whereas clauses rather than resolve clauses. They're the reasons why you're opposed to this particular proposal from DOT.
Okay.
May I?
Yes, please.
While I understand your position, I don't agree with it, because we're asking them to do something very specific, and I think taking them out of the resolution, it sort of just throws our hands up in the air and gives up on it. So it's not asking them to do anything if we put them.
Kelly, this is your resolution. It's entirely up to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, that's exactly why we discussed it here.
But I do appreciate your comments and your input.
And
Before I yield the floor, there's one other thing I wanted to mention, that we did receive, following the 254th Street project, a number of complaints and concerns, particularly in that area over by the railroad, and we are going to work with the office and with DOT to make sure that everyone's voice has been heard.
thank you.
What were the complaints? The parking.
Parking, deteriorating sidewalks, just a big pothole down near the railroad station, things of that nature.
I drive it every day, so I was just, I park at Metro North, so I was just wondering, yeah.
All right, and please follow up individually with Kelly. Rosemary, did you have something?
Yeah, on this, because there's no resolution on this particular, item, 254th Street, but, I did turn into your wonderful meeting to hear the Henry Hudson piece and sat through the presentation on 254th Street. And I wanna, make a suggestion, that you, and Farah, maybe you can help her to get, there is a history to this street. I'm sorry, what? Okay, there's a history to this street, board action. There's been board action over the years that, wasn't referred to in the presentation, and I think would be helpful for you and the committee to understand some background history. One is SAR, when we approved one of the last, SNAD authorizations, there was a requirement that SAR put a sidewalk on the north side of the street for their property. So there's a whole history to that piece. In addition, the TNT committee at some point, I know I was chair, and the resolution came out and approved by the board, the following resolution. It was requesting DOT to do a feasibility study on the possibility of doing a sidewalk on the north side of the street. That's what the board asked for, a feasibility study. And so that's a piece of the history. Then all of a sudden I see this is going to be a complete street, 60 feet. So I feel like there's something missing, and those two pieces of history I think would be helpful for you and the committee, just to have as the background in,
Thank you. I
in
appreciate
discussing
that.
this. Okay. Well,
Thank
when you
you.
get, when you get old and you hang around the board for so long, you remember this stuff, you know?
Any other comments for TNT? I think we'll move on.
Yeah.
Is there two versions of the same resolution?
It is, for education, are we talking? Which
Yeah.
one? Yes. Sylvia asked me to present from her meeting.
Oh, okay. So then Farah will present, I was gonna.
Oh, totally fine.
Is there a board member ready to present on Sylvia's?
I'm ready, but I'm happy to yield the floor to you. Okay.
Board member.
So we approved for the Logboat Omer picnic on May 26th, from 2:30 to close the street between West 235th and Independence Avenue and Douglas Ave between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Was there a second? Oh, and then there's an adult section, the first one's for kids, and then there's an older section afterwards. The music will actually get turned down by 8, and what was really nice is because it was an education, library, and culture meeting, the librarians from Spite and Dival, Aga, was talking about what a fantastic partner Rabbi Shem Tov has made over the past few years, making sure that all the garbage is cleaned up and taken care of before the library opens the next day. So it was unanimously approved. And he and the rabbi did make sure to invite everybody to the picnic.
Yeah, Rabbi likes to party.
Yeah, Rabbi likes to party. And then the next one was the Amalgamated Nursery School Spring Bazaar. They sent their parent committee chair to close the street, and it's a very small chunk. And again, it was approved unanimously. And they're really excited. It's such a sweet neighborhood school with a dedicated family body.
Okay, any questions for ECLA? Anybody up there? Anybody down here? Thank you for that right there explanation. No questions. All right, moving on. Economic Development has a SAPO that, Troy, you were at. Or,
Yeah, I'll give you all the,
this is for the North River block party.
right. Where is it?
Did they present yesterday?
Who?
At the.
They did, and it was,
Economic Development
unanimously approved.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Let me just get you.
No
It's
worries.
right here.
All right, so the North Riverdale block party, this the Riverdale Main Streets Alliance, came to us and presented with their intent to hold a block party on May 19th from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they've held similar events without any concerns. I had asked about the porta potties, and they said that there was some agreement amongst the vendors that they would allow the members of the public to use the restroom. So we unanimously approved of the issuance of this permit.
Any questions on the economic development CAPO? Any questions from Zoom? Any questions down low? No? Okay. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for stepping in, Joy.
Oh, there's Nick.
Oh, where's Nick?
Here he comes.
Late, Nick.
We're done.
We're done. Move on?
We're gonna move on.
That's right.
No, I don't think he can't count as a quorum.
he's not there. Right.
Oh, but EC doesn't count to
Okay.
towards quorum.
So we will let Nick know that, we loved his resolution. Now, these last ones are for informational purposes, Madam Chair. Farah,
These
the
are
nomination,
nominations that they voted on for the Most Valuable Merchant, Betty Campbell Adams Award. So they were given three of them, names are all blocked out. They're considered nomination 1, 2, and 3.
okay.
And at the prompting of Dr. Gomez, we decided to give all three.
Outstanding. There's nothing wrong with recognizing more people. Thank you. Any questions on these from our Zoom participants? Any questions from our live participants? Not that you're not live.
Are we gonna get to know who nominated 1, 2, and?
That's a great question,
Sergio.
That's a great question. Wait,
No,
Rosemary?
what I'm saying, that's
Rosemary
not
has another great
publicly,
question. That's a great question.
but. Okay.
When do we get to know who nominee 1, 2, and 3 are?
That's a good question.
It is.
I told you Rosemary has good questions.
That's up to the
Sergio?
chair, we
Yeah.
weren't sure.
Two of them are pharmacies.
Good, because I was pushing one of them. Hopefully it's one of the ones I pushed.
No, I think.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, your hand was up.
Okay, so the process, what I believe was decided was that the applicants, economic development will receive the applications blacked out. They would select their nominees and then present it to the executive board. And I see that Nick has just joined us, so maybe if he wants to present it to the executive board now, give us the information on the applicants, and then the executive board can chime in.
Mr. Fazio.
Presented to the board. They've selected their 3. They selected 3?
Great.
Okay.
Marty, you had your hand up. Do you want to wait till after Nick Fazio speaks?
Yes, after Nick.
Thank you. Mr. Fazio?
Hello,
Ed,
can you hear me?
we can hear you, yeah.
So I'm sorry, what was the question?
Your SAPO resolution, was completely non-controversial, no questions. And, Joy presented for you. The question now is the 3, winners of the Betty Campbell Award.
Okay.
Are you in a position to share that with us?
I'm not clear exactly what you want me to share with you.
The identities, the names of the
Who-
businesses.
No,
These
not
are
their
no
names,
identities
not their
today.
names. No, we don't want their names. If he's not ready, he can present in May, because I believe the awardees aren't going to be selected until June. We don't want their names. We just want the basic information that they received and how they approve the applicants. We don't
Okay,
want their names.
got it. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I can't give you the names because I don't know them. They were redacted, so we have no idea. Well, I mean, obviously we have an idea because we're familiar with the businesses, but we for certainty, we don't know the names of the businesses. We were presented with 3 nominations. And they all had, great, reviews from the people who nominated them. And we had deliberations, and we determined we were going to award all 3 with the Betty Campbell Adams Most Valuable Merchant Award. I quite frankly am not really sure as to when their names will be revealed. This is the first year that we've done it this way. And I'm hoping that whomever made the decision will know or figure out when and how we're going to reveal those names. But quite frankly, I don't have an answer for that.
Thank you, Nick. Marty, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I thought the objective that we discussed 2 months ago was that minimally, the executive committee would know who we were talking about. To approve 1, 2, and 3 without having some information doesn't meet that criteria. So if sheets were handed out, in which the conversation at the exec was numbered without revealing people, then at least the exec would know who is being selected. This selecting 1, 2, 3 doesn't satisfy that.
We have the actual sheets numbered 1, 2, 3 that we could give, but again, it wasn't clear specifically when we were supposed to give all this out, so we're learning.
Okay, so it wasn't sent out prior to the meeting, so it's not part of this meeting. So we'll I'm sure the office and our chair will handle it, and Nick will handle it in due course. I don't believe there's anything to be done right at this moment. Any other questions for Nick or the chair on this process? Yes,
Yes.
Rosemary.
This is presented here as a resolution. Are we going to have this resolution in front of us at the board meeting? And if we are, then I go back to my original question, who's number 1, number 2, and number 3?
So
You understand what I'm
yeah,
saying?
may I paraphrase?
Please, feel free.
Why do I need to paraphrase? You all heard what Rosemary said. So this is presented as a resolution. Do we know at what meeting this resolution will be presented to the board? That I guess is the question.
Yeah.
Is that a question
You're
for me?
muted, Madam Chair.
My understanding was, as Marty stated, that at an executive board meeting, I think it was 2 months ago, it was discussed that the committees would receive the information on the applicants. Everything would be redacted. They would make their selection on who they would select. They would bring it to the executive board, again, without naming the person, but giving all the basic information, and the executive board would chime in either yes or no if they approve or disapprove on the applicants. And then it would be brought to the board to make a selection.
Madam Chair, I think the question is, when it's brought to the board, will that have the names on it?
What will the names be?
Right.
2 months ago at the meeting, when it was discussed, my understanding, and it was all given out an instruction on an email, was that if you name the person and then the board decides, or the executive board decides not to select that person, that's the reason why they redacted the information until the person was selected. So if you're going for, like, let's say ABC store, all the good work that they do, state all the good work, they do everything except for name the individual in case they get rejected. And then once they're approved, then the name would be displayed. Because my understanding is that a few years ago, when either a person or an organization was named at a committee, someone objected, and that person did not receive the award because it was a personal matter, which it should not be. And that's the reason why the committee, the executive board, I think it was 2 months ago, decided, let's redact it, give it to them on a blanket slate so that we could pick fairly. and
So
without
it-
unconscious bias. And then when the board selects the applicants, then their names, because they still have to contact the nominee and advise them that they won, you know.
So the
Well, not-
board would, right, so the board will be voting like the committee without names.
Right, they'll
Is
have
that correct?
everything but the name, the work that
Got
they.
you, thank you.
They'll have everything but the name. That was my understanding, because a few years ago, a name was displayed in public, and then a
Yes.
committee board member, rather an exec, I believe it was, said, I don't want this person to get that award, and that was unfair. So this was the fairest
Understood.
way that they can come with.
Okay, so hold on, Kelly?
Let Marty
So
weigh
my-
in on this, though, because Marty had a lot of to do with this, to bring it back to the executive board, because that's one thing. It went from being a board award to a committee award, and it's a board award. So Marty, weigh in.
The issue was, way back, going back a bit, it came before the executive board, the, executive committee. Names were known and shared, and somebody raised strong objection to a particular person. The executive committee went with that non-recommendation. And so that name was withdrawn and was never publicly known, ever.
Yeah, but now we're on Zoom, so, you know.
That's the
what do
reason
you do?
that's
Exactly.
why when you sit and look at it, 1, 2, and 3 is for the public consumption. They know it's 1, 2, and 3, but we hold in our hands, why that person, why that entity was so nominated.
Well, would this be something that we could do in executive session towards the end of the meeting and give the names?
There you go.
Well, I'm not certain that if, well, I'll defer to others. I'm not certain that this is a proper use of executive session. It's not exactly a personnel issue, but Farah, could you shed some light on
Can
this?
I ask a question? So, we have the actual forms where everything's blacked out, you know, the nominations with all the details. So that's my question. We should share it with the whole executive committee to look at the details, to see the resolutions. So I would like to hand those out now to everyone, but they were not given this yet.
Does it have,
Wouldn't that
does it have
resolve
the
that?
name?
And what's that?
Does it have the name?
No, it's the
Okay,
blackout.
well, then we're still at the same issue. Some people, I understand, if I'm hearing correctly, wants the name, if I'm hearing correctly.
No, I think,
Wait, hold on a second. Kelly had her hand up.
I think the issue is, and thank you, Farah, for indicating that you have the forms here. I think the issue is that we don't have enough to make a decision, and my ask was, are we then going to table this part to the May Executive Committee meeting for presentation at the May board meeting?
That's what I thought we were heading for, Madam Chair. Is that correct? We're not gonna resolve this tonight. So I think Madam Chair, so would it be fair to say this will be on the May Exec Committee?
I gotta send this to the exec committee, yeah.
That's
So
what I
then we
said
have
a
it in
few minutes,
advance?
that's what I said a few minutes ago, and then
Yes, it
you
is.
guys continued, so.
Yes, it is, okay. So can we move on from this topic, since it's gonna be
I just-
really at the May Executive Committee?
I just want to bring up one thing.
If we all right, so if you, wait, Ed Green has a 15-second comment. All
Right, so somebody mentioned going to, executive. The issue is the anonymity of them. So you want to shield it from the public in Zoom. That's the only way you can do it.
Right, but we're not doing that tonight anyway.
I'm not saying, but I'm saying eventually that has to be done if you want to reveal names without messing up anybody's anonymity.
Well, we'll have to look at what the rules are, because there's some things you can go into, some things you can't go into executive. I'm not sure if this is the type of thing for executive, but okay. We will move right along. All right. Any committee chairs have anything burning that we need to announce? Let us know about. Anyone, David?
Yes,
Do you have something burning you have to share with us that you haven't already shared?
yes. It's
Okay.
just, I hope this to be my last exhortation of all of the chairs for this fiscal year. But your capital and expense budget priorities are due in 2.5 weeks on the 19th. One chair has already submitted theirs, and all of you will have your April meetings before the 19th, except for one committee. So, and I can work with that chair without any difficulty on taking care of that. But please, let's make sure that we get the 2 lists in to the office and kindly CC them to me. And that's all.
Thank you, thank you. All right, thank you for the budget committee. Law, rules, and ethics, Marty.
Yes, I just want to remind everyone that I sent out a rather extensive memo concerning extraordinary circumstances and the recommendation from the LRE to cease with that process. And I'm still asking for input from everyone else. We will have to discuss this in May, although I might ask for it to be extended since it expires in June 6th, I believe, and the state legislature needs to renew it, and they may make changes. But I still like input if you like the idea of VC or not like the idea of VC, so that we can come back, LRE can come back with a further learned presentation.
Thank you, Marty. Any other committees have anything that's pressing before us?
Oh, on April 15th, I'm joining the rest of the chairs of the Youth Committee downtown for the New York City Youth Agenda Policy Conference. So we'll be able to hear like what's on everybody's agenda before we meet this.
Thank you. Any other committees?
You have housing and parks haven't.
And
been-
aging.
And aging.
No,
Did
no,
you-
no. Well, we were only asking for committee members who felt that they had something that they needed to share now.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't,
They don't have anything to share. They could at least share the date of their next meeting so the public will be aware and they'll come.
Oh, yes, okay, yes, Julie. So, the Housing Committee got jammed up in both April and May. It's a double whammy. April is Passover, so, and Farah, God bless you, trying to find another date. There is no date in April for us, so we're not having a meeting in April. Then we turn to May, and it's Memorial Day, so Farah looked, we got a date. I don't take it personally, Bob, you know. We got May 29th. That May 29th will be the next Housing Committee meeting, not through our fault, through somebody else's fault. Okay, and thank you, Farah, for finding that date.
All right, aging? Anyone reporting for aging?
Hi, I'm reporting for aging. I'm the vice chair, Mary
When's
Ellen
our next
Williams.
meeting?
The next meeting is April 11th, and we're gonna have it at the Riverdale Senior Center, 2600 Netherland Avenue, Suite 100. It will be
That's
hybrid.
Suite 100, that was,
Not Suite 100.
yeah, it's the first floor.
Okay, first floor, and threw me off. Okay, 2600 Netherland Avenue on the first floor, and we do have a speaker, Margie Shoestack, Director of Communications and Programming at Riverdale Senior Center.
Thank you. David, budget, do you have a meeting scheduled or not?
Not for April and May.
Thank you. Nick, Fazio Economic Development? Next meeting? Or?
All right, next meeting will be Tuesday, May 7th.
Thank you. Education, Library, Cultural Affairs, do we know when their next meeting is?
It'll be in May as well, because of,
Okay,
the
no exact date. Environment Sanitation?
Our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 17th, and we're gonna talk about all the budget things.
Thank you, bless you. Hospitals? Anyone, on the committee or, all right,
If Health and Hospitals is the second Wednesday of the month, it would be
It's on the
May.
10th. It's on the 10th.
thank you, Madam Chair.
April 10th, I'm sorry, I'm looking at.
April 10th, right.
Yes, thank
And
you.
Rosemary, you already said 5/29, right?
5/29, right.
Land use? Anyone,
The first Monday,
Marty?
Yeah, there was no meeting this month, and so everything is put off to May.
And it's the first Monday?
Yeah, May 6th.
This Monday.
5/6, thank you. And Marty, when's your next meeting, Law, Rules, and Ethics?
Monday night after the eclipse.
oh, yeah.
4/8.
We're assuming you
Nice.
survived
Okay,
the eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
good. Don't keep us in the dark. All right, Deb, Parks Rec?
Parks and Rec, next meeting is April 24th, and we'll be discussing the Marshall Golf Course. I think DDC is coming to give us an update on the final bits of the driving range, and the concessions unit. Hopefully we'll have picked who will be doing the concession, and they'll be giving us their plan, what their proposal was.
Sure, and then, Traffic and Transportation, Kelly Buford?
April 18.
Thank you, ma'am. And Youth, when is, your next meeting?
Oh, also, it's April 15th,
Oh, tax day.
after the policy meeting.
Wonderful. And we are, let's see, Special Committee on Racial Equity? Margaret?
April 11th.
It's on Thursday, April 11th.
Agreed, April 11th. And Special Committee on the Greenway?
No meeting this month.
Okay, Greenway, no meeting. And I know that Veterans is meeting, right?
Yeah.
And we may be having a special guest. The Chair Holden, City Council member, who's the Chair of the Veterans Committee, I believe, may have been coming.
Yes, you have.
That's a rumor. Anyway, I did want to report, I did have the opportunity to attend the Veterans Committee meeting at the City Council yesterday, and it was very informative, and I will follow up on with a more full report. But it was a good meeting to be at. There seems to be a good group of council members who are very, very motivated about veterans issues, and it crosses over. Okay, did I miss any committees?
Public safety is Tuesday, April 16th at 7 PM at the 50th precinct, no Zoom.
No Zoom, okay. That's never Zoom, right?
Never Zoom.
At the 50th, okay. So if you want that one, you gotta go.
Tell me.
Have I missed any other committees? No. Okay, thank you. Any unfinished business? Anyone have any business that is old business, unfinished business? Seeing none, any new business? On Zoom, in person? Seeing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Not yet? But I like your attitude. And, Madam Chair, is it accurate that we're having our next executive committee meeting on May 1st?
Yes, and I just want to thank you again, Sergio.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, okay, now,
Motion to adjourn.
thank you. So Rosemary moved, second by Kelly. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Great meeting, everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Everybody be safe going home.